Welcome to Life Stories, where one man's quiet dignity silences an entire auditorium and forces everyone to question what honor really looks like. He didn't come to be celebrated, he didn't ask for attention. But when security tried to escort him out of his own son's graduation, 6 strangers stood up, and what happened next changed the room forever. This is not just a story about war, or sacrifice, or the wounds we carry in silence. It's about a father, a folded card, and the moment the world realized who he truly was. Stay with us, because by the time you reach the end, you may never look at the back of the room the same way again. Let's begin. The sun had barely stretched its fingers across the Hudson River when Emily Grayson pulled into the staff lot of Hudson Valley University. The air was crisp, the kind that clung to your skin like early spring memories. Today was graduation day, bright, well-rehearsed, full of silk robes and curated pride. And for once, Emily wasn't here as the vice dean. She was here as a mother. Her son Aaron would walk the stage today. Not just a graduate, but top of his class. Dean's List. Honors in political science. The kind of student colleges wrote brochures about. But none of that mattered as much to Emily as the small smile he gave her when he slipped a folded card into her hand the night before. "Don't sit too far back," he had said. "I want you to see everything." She parked, breathed in, and stepped out into the morning stillness, smoothing the wrinkles in her navy blue dress. A program was tucked tightly in her hand, Aaron's name bold in ink, halfway down the second column. A single name among hundreds, yet to her, it glowed. Inside the grand auditorium, rows of chairs were roped off for distinguished guests and family of honorees. Staff and ushers were already guiding families to their assigned seats with a kind of soft urgency only seen on days like this. 5th row, center left. She liked being close enough to see the faces, every twitch of nervous pride, every sideways glance at the crowd. But today, her eyes kept drifting. Not to the stage, not to Aaron, to the man who walked in through the side door. He didn't belong, not by anyone's standard. Worn jeans, boots caked in old scuffs, and a marine dress jacket faded at the seams. It hung slightly off one shoulder like it had been tailored for a different time and a different body. His posture, though, straight, unyielding. Hands clasped behind his back, not in arrogance, in discipline. He made his way slowly, deliberately, toward the front, but paused at the rope line. A young usher, maybe 20, in a headset and college windbreaker, stepped into his path. "Sir," she said, her voice polite but clipped, "this section is for designated family only." The man said nothing, just nodded once, then pulled something from inside his coat. A small folded card. Emily couldn't see what it said, but she saw how he held it, not as proof, but as purpose. "My son asked me to sit in the front row," he said, voice low, worn by time. The usher barely glanced at the card. "I'm sorry, sir. If you don't have a guest pass, I'll have to ask you to move back. Security is on standby." And just like that, he stepped back. No protest, no complaint. Just a quiet nod and a slow retreat toward the far wall. He positioned himself beneath the glowing red exit sign, hands returning behind his back, eyes fixed on the stage. Emily watched, a strange knot twisting in her chest. She'd seen arrogance. She'd seen disorder. This was neither. This man didn't look lost. He looked dismissed. A few seats down, she noticed movement. 6 men sitting quietly in the 5th row exchanged glances, civilian clothes, silent alertness. Their posture didn't match the festive crowd. They looked like men who hadn't been trained to watch, but born to. The ceremony began. Speeches were made, jokes cracked about student loans and cafeteria food. Families laughed, flashbulbs popped, but Emily couldn't stop watching the man at the back. When the dean's son took the stage as student speaker, polished, practiced, groomed, he ended his speech with a sly grin. "And a big thanks to the picture-perfect families sitting right here in the front," he said, gesturing toward the audience. "Reminding us what real American values look like." Laughter. Applause. Except from the 6 men in row 5. And the man at the wall, and Emily, because she saw it then. The slight lift of the old Marine's chin. The way his left hand trembled just once before stilling again. And she noticed something else. His jacket bore a faded emblem above the heart. 3rd Reconnaissance Battalion. She whispered to the woman next to her, another administrator, badge flashing in the light. Do you know who that is? The woman didn't even look. Probably wandered in from the street. These events attract extras. Extras. Emily's stomach turned. The word wasn't wrong, it was worse, it was dismissive. And somewhere, deep in her memory, something surfaced, an article from years ago, a photograph in grainy print. James Rourke, Master Sergeant 3rd Recon, survivor of Operation Firewatch. It couldn't be. Could it? The tension thickened when 2 security guards began moving toward the man. He didn't resist, just reached again into his coat. The same card, held out, unfolded. My son asked me to be here, he said quietly. He said front row. Please step aside, sir, one of the guards said, hand already on his radio. Emily's breath caught. Around her, families fussed with cameras and flower bouquets, oblivious. But not the men in row 5. One of them stood. Tall, cropped haircut, civilian jacket open just enough to flash something metallic at his chest, a Navy SEAL trident. Then another stood. And another. All 6. They didn't speak, they didn't gesture, they just walked toward the back. The lead man stepped between the Marine and the guards. That man doesn't leave, he said, voice low, calm. He led us through hell, he stays right here. Emily felt the air shift, like the oxygen had been replaced by reverence. Then, from the far side of the stage, a figure moved. A graduate, cap tilted slightly, gown trailing. Aaron. He stepped to the podium, bypassing the dean, ignoring the cue. He didn't wait. That man, he said into the microphone, pointing toward the back, is my father. The auditorium froze. He didn't ask to be honored. He only asked to be seen. And I won't stand on this stage while the man who taught me how to stand is being shown the door. Then he stepped down, walked past rows of stunned faces, stopped in front of the man in the Marine jacket, and saluted. James Rourke didn't return it. He opened his arms, and his son, his proud, furious, trembling son, stepped into them. What would you do if the world overlooked someone who once carried it on his back? When does silence become more powerful than any speech? But just as the applause began, someone from the far left of the auditorium stood up and revealed a truth even Aaron didn't know. And with that, everything shifted again, leading us into what came next. From the far left aisle, a voice rose. Calm, measured, but carrying the weight of command, the kind of voice that didn't ask for attention, but summoned it. I know that man, the voice said. The crowd turned. An older gentleman stood, his silver hair immaculately combed, his chest adorned with military ribbons so numerous they looked like a mosaic of memory and blood. His stance was unmistakable, upright, squared, dignified. A colonel. Emily recognized the uniform before she recognized the man. Colonel Daniel Whitaker, retired, decorated, revered. She remembered shaking his hand at a university fundraiser last year, surprised by how strong his grip still was. In 2006, Whitaker continued, eyes fixed on James Rourke. During Operation Firewatch in Kandahar, I watched that man run back into a burning compound. Alone. Under live fire. He pulled 5 Marines out before the roof collapsed. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't wait for orders. He just went. A hush swept through the auditorium like a winter wind. Emily felt her skin prickle. He was the only one who came back, Whitaker said, voice thick now, because he carried the rest of us on his back. The crowd wasn't clapping. No one moved. It wasn't that kind of moment. This wasn't patriotism for show. This was something raw, sacred. A reckoning. Aaron stood next to his father, still holding his salute, as if time had frozen in mid-motion. James remained unmoved, his face set like stone, except for one flicker. Emily saw it, the briefest shift in his eyes. Regret? No. Something more complicated, something heavier. After the silence had stretched thin and taut, the dean finally stepped forward again, looking as if he'd aged a year and 10 minutes. We are, he began, voice cracking, humbled to welcome Master Sergeant James Rourke, United States Marine Corps, into our presence today. Scattered applause. Awkward, hesitant. And still, James did not smile. He simply lowered his eyes to the invitation card he still held, the one with his son's handwriting. The ceremony resumed, but nothing was the same. A strange gravity hung over the rest of the proceedings. Emily couldn't stop watching James, or Aaron beside him, and something else was nagging at her. A feeling, like something hadn't yet revealed itself. When the graduates tossed their caps and the audience rose to cheer, Emily lingered behind. She watched Aaron and James make their way through a gauntlet of well-wishers, handshakes, and half-sentences. But the 6 SEALs never left his side. Always 3 steps behind, like they had once followed him into places most men never return from. Then it happened. A woman approached James. Tall, late 40s, sharp blazer, sharp jawline. Not university staff. She held a manila folder tightly against her chest, like it might break open under the weight of what it contained. "James Rourke?" she asked. He nodded slowly. She looked at Aaron, then Emily, then back at James. Her expression faltered, just for a breath. Then she handed him the folder. "I work for the VA," she said. "You were supposed to receive this a year ago. There was a delay." James opened the folder. His eyes skimmed the top page, and suddenly he wasn't standing in a graduation hall anymore. He was somewhere else entirely, somewhere buried in sand and smoke and names etched into metal tags. His jaw clenched. A muscle pulsed in his neck. Aaron leaned in. "Dad?" James slowly turned the folder toward his son. Emily couldn't see everything, but she caught the bold headline. Posthumous award recommendation, Navy Cross, Sergeant D. Rourke. "Chief Rourke?" Aaron asked, confused. James didn't answer. He couldn't. Emily stepped forward, her mind piecing it together. D. Rourke, not James. But Daniel, the brother, the twin, the one who didn't come back. The one James had never talked about. Aaron's eyes widened. "You never told me." James looked at his son, his voice cracking for the first time all day. "I promised your mother I wouldn't, not until you were ready." Emily felt her breath catch. Aaron's mother, James's late wife, had died of cancer years ago. She remembered the obituary. There had been no mention of a brother. James swallowed hard. Daniel was the one meant to lead that mission. He got hit in the first wave. I picked up his rifle and took his place. Nobody knew. I never corrected the record. The VA official looked down, ashamed. "The records we uncovered, they all listed Sergeant Rourke. We assumed it was you." Emily blinked fast. She wasn't just watching history unfold. She was watching a man crack open a part of himself he'd buried deeper than bone. Aaron stepped back, eyes glossy. "So, all these years, you've been carrying his name, his honor." James shook his head. "No, just his silence." The moment was unbearable in its stillness. Then one of the SEALs stepped forward, the youngest of the 6. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled something out. A small object glinted in the light. He pressed it into James's hand. A coin, a SEAL challenge coin. Emily recognized the phrase engraved on the edge. "The quiet ones lead the loudest wars." James closed his hand around it. And finally his shoulders dropped. Not from defeat, but from release. What do we owe to the people who carry our silence, even when it breaks them from the inside out? But just as James thought the truth had set him free, another voice called his name, from someone he believed long gone. And with that, everything he thought he knew was about to be shattered. "James Rourke?" The voice came from near the auditorium entrance, soft, feminine, but unmistakably familiar. James stiffened, every line of his body going rigid, as if the past had just cracked open and walked through the door. Emily turned first, then Aaron. Everyone else had begun to filter out, the ceremony now a memory, except for a few staff members lingering near the stage. But the moment that voice echoed across the polished floor, the energy shifted again. Something had arrived that didn't belong to this day, but to one that never ended. A woman stepped into view. Early 50s, slim frame, auburn hair streaked with gray, tied in a neat knot. She wasn't dressed like a mourner or a soldier. She looked like someone who had lived too many quiet years with too many things unsaid. James stared at her like he was seeing a ghost. Her name escaped his lips in a breath he hadn't meant to speak. "Marianne." Aaron turned sharply. "Wait, what?" The woman stopped a few feet away, her eyes already shining. "I didn't come for the ceremony," she said. "I came because I heard your name." James stepped forward, slow, deliberate. "I thought you left the country." "I did," she said, her voice faltering. "But you know how ghosts work. They follow you, even when you're alive." Aaron looked between them. "Who is she?" Neither answered. It was Emily who remembered. A name she'd read once, buried in a folded letter James had asked her to destroy years ago. She hadn't, not fully. Marianne Hayes, former Navy intelligence, assigned to Kandahar, discharged with honors, disappeared shortly after 2006, presumed dead by more than one report, except she wasn't. James finally spoke. You were there, weren't you? She nodded. The day Daniel died. Silence settled in, not cold, not hostile, just heavy, like the air between them had to be carried, not breathed. I saw what you did, Marianne said, how you went back in, how you carried them out, how you never said a word. James's voice cracked. He was the brave one. I just picked up what was left. You picked up everyone, she said gently. You were the only reason I made it out too, but they gave his name the medal, and you never corrected it. I couldn't, he said, his eyes reddening. I wore his name to make sure it meant something, but I lost mine along the way. Aaron stepped closer, his voice hoarse. So all these years, the stories you told me, weren't yours? James shook his head. They were all his. I gave you his legacy because I didn't think mine was worth telling. Aaron stared at his father, breath trembling. But I didn't love the man in the stories, Dad. I made my lunch. I loved the man made my lunch, who never missed a game, who stayed up helping me write my first speech even when you were dead tired. That was you. The auditorium, almost empty now, felt as if it held the whole world between its cracked open walls. Marianne reached into her bag and pulled out an old photograph, faded, folded at the corners. She handed it to James. It was the squad. 3rd Recon, all of them, standing in front of a scorched compound, dusty and laughing. Daniel stood tall, grinning, one arm around his twin brother. Marianne was in the back, half-shadowed but smiling. James looked 20 years younger and lighter. There was a version of you, Marianne said softly, that existed before the fire. You don't owe anyone that version back, but you owe it to yourself to remember he still lives inside you. James looked down at the photo for a long moment, then slowly, without ceremony, he handed it to Aaron. This is your uncle, he said, and this is what silence looks like when you let it sit too long. Aaron took the photo with both hands, his grip gentle. I want to know your story too, he said. Not just his. James let out a breath that sounded like release. Then let's start telling it. Marianne smiled, eyes glistening. I think I'm ready to tell mine too. Emily, standing at the edge of it all, felt tears sting the corners of her eyes, not for the heartbreak, but for the healing. James turned to her. You kept your seat all the way through. I didn't want to miss the best part, she said. And it was. The 6 SEALs still lingered by the side of the room, without watching. One of them nodded slightly, then turned away. They knew when their part of the story had ended. This was no longer a matter of rank, protocol, or medals. It was about reconciliation. It was about what comes after silence. James tucked the challenge coin into Aaron's hand. You carry it now, he said. I think it belongs in your story. Father and son stood in the middle of the quiet hall, Marianne beside them. And somewhere deep within James Rourke, a name worn like armor, borrowed for too long, something finally shifted. Not everything broken has to be mended. Some things just have to be shared, gently, truthfully, with someone willing to listen. And when they stepped out into the fading afternoon, the sun hit James's jacket just right. The Marine insignia gleamed softly, not as a badge of pain, but as a tribute. Not to the man he lost, but to the man he became. What part of this story stayed with you the most? And why? Comment 100 if this story moved you. Where are you watching from? Share this story with someone who still believes in quiet heroes. Thank you for watching Life Stories.